Hi, I'm Dan Obashan. Welcome back to the joy of teaching tennis. I was thinking a lot this week about the communication between a teacher and the student. If you remember back to when we did the definitions of teaching, it was, to paraphrase the dictionary definition, it was about the conveying of ideas or concepts or techniques by an authority figure. And I think one of the problems in teaching is sometimes the teacher can get a little bit of a big ego. And when they get that big ego, then they don't really care about the student's needs or listen to the student well enough to understand their needs. I vividly remember a time when Peter Burwash and I were at a big tennis industry function, and there was this reception, and we're meeting lots of different people and all this. And at the end of the reception, Peter came up to me and said, "Oh, who is that guy you were speaking to?" And I honestly couldn't remember his name, and I had just met him a minute ago. And I said to Peter, I have real trouble with that, remembering names when I meet people in these social settings. And Peter said, well, that's because you don't care. And it offended me because I'm consider myself a caring person. And I said to Peter, and he said, no, I don't mean you're not a caring person. I said, you don't care about learning that name in this environment. He said, when you have a big camp, you learn all the students' names, right? And have no trouble remembering while you're teaching. And I said, yeah, that's true. And Peter said, well, that's because you understand and you care how important it is to learn the names of the students you're going to be teaching. If you took that same attitude of caring about learning the names of these people that you're meeting in a social setting, it would be easier for you. And I believe Peter was right about that. So how can we negotiate that gap between the ego of the authority and teacher and caring about the students? Well, it goes back to the fundamentals, and those of you who are long-time viewers of this YouTube channel know about the listen, observe, teach, the LOT concept. Listen, observe, teach are the steps that we want to take when we're communicating with our student and deciding how and what we're going to teach them. Stage one is listen. Ask questions. Understand the student. Understand what they want and what they need. You know, what are their goals? What are their beliefs? One of the things that I heard years ago was if a student understood what the problem was, they wouldn't need us as the teacher because they could correct them themselves. But they still have ideas about what the problem is, and that'll often give you the clue as to what's the most important thing for you to teach them. So, and then the third stage, or the second stage, is observe. In a tennis environment, if a student tells me what they think is the problem and what their goals are, I want to test it. I want to see what they actually do. So then I can use my knowledge as the authority to decide, did the student understand what their problem really was? Or maybe they had a misunderstanding, and I can help them along by correcting their ideas of what the problem is before I start teaching them how to do the problem themselves. And that's when we get to the third stage of teaching. I'll give you an example. When I was in the Woodlands, Texas, in charge of training new professionals, at the end of the training program, the new pros would teach practice teaching lessons that we would observe and then critique them on. And there was a professional who was doing a lesson with a student on the serve. And I was above them on the balcony watching and listening. And the pro asked the student some great questions. And one of the questions he asked the student was, what do you think the problem is? And I thought, that's an interesting question. And the student said, oh, the problem is I have a bad toss. My toss is all over the place. And that's where the pro made a mistake and fell off the rails. Because the student told him what the problem was, the pro instantly started teaching him how to toss the ball. He had never seen the man serve yet. He didn't know what it was. And so he started teaching what the student thought the problem was before he had evaluated what the real problem was. The proper steps in the listen, observe, teach, after that great question, the pro should have said, well, let's warm up some serves, and then had the student hit 4, 5, 6 serves to see what the problem was. And then he would have gone, geez, your toss really isn't the problem. And then he could have begun teaching to correct the real problem. So the best way to bridge this gap between you as the authority figure is humble yourself enough to ask the student questions, listen to what they're saying, try to understand their mentality, try to understand their beliefs about what the problem is, then observe yourself to see what the problem might be, then you can begin teaching. So thanks very much, as always, for listening. I hope if you enjoy these videos, you'll click the like button and subscribe. We just checked and we're at 98 subscribers, so we're a little closer than last week. When we hit the 100 subscribers, we'll have a huge celebration. I'll send all of you a new car or something. But thanks again. I appreciate all the comments, and go out there and be joyful.